Okay, we have dealt with the thorns for our shopping cart add method. We've made sure that we've got a product. Product is not allowed to be null. If the product is null, we throw a missing product exception. When the quantity is less than or equal to 0, we throw an invalid quantity exception. We haven't got the conditional for the invalid quantity exception just yet because the way we have the tests at the moment, it is not required. Alright, it's time for us to move on to the gold, and the gold were the happy pass scenarios. With regards to the add method, where we are adding shopping cart items into our shopping cart, like 3 apples, 5 bananas, 2 Porsches, 6 donuts, whatever it might be, we're at that stage now. So let's go and write a test for us to actually add some product into our shopping cart. So I'm going to write a new test, and as usual, make that a fact. Public void, scroll up a little bit, and how about something like given 3 apples when call add, then have 3 apples in cart. And with that, once again, we would have we need a cart. So cart is equal to new shopping cart. And now we want to actually add something into the cart. So new product 3. Yep, that's good. Okay, we want to actually add apples. How do we add apples? Well, apples would be a type of product. I'm going to call this product apples, or apple. Let's go back to our original design and see what the product looked like. Alright, here we've got the design. So there's a shopping cart item which contains a product and a quantity, and the product is made up of a name and unit price. So back to Visual Studio. It's fine to give our product a name, and here that'll be a string. And as it stands, it'll be apple for this particular unit test, because that's what we want. It's not required for us to have a unit price just yet for our product. And as per rule number 2 of the 3 rules of TDD, we should write our unit test in the simplest possible way. Let me just go back to the 3 rules of TDD just to refresh our minds. Here we are, the 3 rules of TDD. Rule number 1, only write production code to make a failing unit test pass. Okay, we've just written a unit test, or we're in the process of writing our unit test. Rule number 2, only write enough of unit test to make the unit test fail. We're in the process of that. And rule number 3, only write enough production code to make the failing test pass. We'll do that as soon as we've got our red or failing unit test. Back to Visual Studio. Right, so we're adding a new product, it's apples, into our cart. There will be 3 of them as per the test. And then how should we test that we've got product apple in our cart? How should we check in the simplest possible way that something's been added into the cart? Why don't you stop the video now and think about this for 30 seconds to a minute, and then we carry on. Alright, how did you go with this exercise? Did you find how we can test that we've added, let's just say, something into the cart? If you haven't, that's fine. Let me show you what I would do as my first assertion. Alright, so how about this for simplicity? Cart.items.count should be 3, is what the IDE comes up with, should be 1. How about we just kind of say, hey, if we were to add 3 apples into our shopping cart, we would have a single shopping cart item in the cart. So you might well be asking, why 1, not 3? Because the combination of apples and 3 will make up a single item. A single apples item which has got a count of 3. And, you know, if we add 5 bananas, then there will be a second item. So we'll have 2 items, 3 apples and 5 bananas. I hope that makes sense. But right now, when we're adding 3 apples in our shopping cart, we ought to have an items count of just the 1. And we've got a couple of problems here. The first one is that product does not contain a constructor that takes 1 argument. All right, fair enough, let's fix that. Product, as we originally created it, was an empty class. Let's fix that. Let's give it a proper constructor that takes an argument. So public product. I'll give it a string argument, a string parameter, and that'll be, say, name. Here we go. And we don't even need to assign that to anything just yet. Okay, let's just have it the way we have it. Funnily enough, our test doesn't even require us to assign name to anything. We'll fix that later on when we need to. The test at the moment just demands of us that we've got a constructor that takes a name. Let's have a look up here. Here we go, fantastic. New product in this unit test now compiled. Product with argument apple now compiled. But we've got a problem up here. Up here we've got new product. It's a default constructor, which we no longer have. We need to provide an argument here. You know, I'm just going to make that the same thing. And this is a harmless change to the above test. It doesn't even use that argument just yet. So this particular unit test was all about testing invalid quantity, not whether the product is valid or not. All right, we still got a problem with items.count. Oh, I see. Yes, it's saying that on an IEnumerable, we don't have a count property. Okay, we ought to be fixing that. And maybe the way to do this, is to actually change away from IEnumerable, maybe to IList. Still off objects, we don't need to change that just yet. But then, of course, IEnumerable empty object that no longer works. Let's initialize our items collection with an instance of a list. New list object. All right, there we go. Great. So now our unit test compiled. In fact, the whole file compiled. Let's run all tests and see what happens. All right, we have a single test failing, and it's our new 3 apples test. And it says invalid quantity 3 is an invalid quantity. Okay, obviously 3 is a valid quantity. Any positive quantity is valid in our shopping cart. So let's find out what's going on here. All right, here we've got the problem. Our add method is checking for product, and it ought to be checking for quantity, but at the moment we're throwing invalid quantity regardless of what the quantity actually is. So let me fix that. If quantity is smaller than 0. Okay, let me run the tests again. Oh, actually we've got 2 errors. Obviously I've made a bit of a boo-boo. Here we go. Given quantity is invalid when call add, then throw invalid quantity exception. Quantity is 0. I have made quantity is smaller than 0. Isn't this nice? The unit tests are already set up to catch little refactoring problems that we're running into. So how about now? Okay, brilliant. We're back to our test. Given 3 apples. Error. The error message is now expected cart items count to be 1, but found 0. Well, and that makes sense. We're not actually doing anything down here. All right, we're not actually adding anything into our items collection that we could then kind of enumerate and say, hey, you know, we've got an item count of 1 here. All right, what do you think? And please stop the video for 30 seconds just to have a bit of a think about it. What do you think might be the simplest way to fix this code, this production code? All right, stop the video now. I'll see you back in 30 seconds. So how did you go? Did you manage to write a really simple implementation to make our unit test pass? And the unit test was this one up here, where really we just checked that we had a single item in our items collection. Okay, it wasn't necessarily a product, it wasn't necessarily a shopping cart type, it just had to be an item. The IDE is trying to be helpful here, saying items.add product, and ultimately, yes, that is what we'll end up with. but it's actually misleading. This is not, if we follow the Visual Studio's suggestion here, we're not writing TDD code. Because for the sake of TDD and our third rule of TDD, where we only want to write the minimum amount of production code to make the unit test, the failing unit test pass, we don't want to write that. We want to write something much simpler. We want to write this. Items.add, yes, something. How about items.add new object? I'll just make that lowercase. Right, we're just adding an object into the items collection. The items collection at the moment is of type object, and I think that should work for our unit test, because a unit test for the time being, obviously we're going to extend this test to ensure that we've got the right type of object in our items collection, but for the time being that ought to do. Okay, so we're adding items, a new object. Let's run all the tests and see what happens. Great. The unit test passes. All unit tests in fact pass, and we're at the stage where we can extend this unit test to tighten it up a little bit, make the assertion a little bit more stringent around what exactly we're going to have in the items collection. At the moment we're not doing that. We'll do that next. See you shortly.